start in 3, 2, 1. Welcome to another great episode of Framing New Heights. My name is Michael Hicks, and I am the host with the most, I guess. Maybe not. With Framing New Heights, we are with the luxury today of a wonderful guest, and I'm not certain as to. Hold on a second here. I had everything lined up. We'll redo this, so no big deal. Okay, here. There we go. Take mindset from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset. In our interview series, we have the luxury from parts unknown. I don't know where you're from, but I'm going to get to that in a little bit. Full background. We have Lisa Campbell with us today. Her background is in musical theater. She did some acting. She did some choir. Here's some really cool things, which we're going to get into a little bit on the podcast today. She played the lead character in an episode of My True Crime Story for VH1. She's a figure competitor starting at the age of 19, athlete and fitness model. She was so close in Nationals 2015, placing 7th, which was in Class D, 5 spots away from pro status. The one, the only, the personal trainer herself, and glute specialist. I'm going to talk about that. Lisa Campbell, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Happy to be here.
Well, we're so delightful to have you here, and thank you so much for connecting. Where are we connecting from? Where are you from?
I'm in Tampa, Florida.
Ah, beautiful. I love Florida. Is it warm there? It's about 70s right now?
It is rainy and gloomy, but for every rain and gloom storm, it's like 5 minutes later and there's sunshine again. So welcome to Florida.
Yeah. It's exactly. It's very similar to Mexico and Cancun in that aspect. So I got a few things. So I want to begin a little bit and talk about, you got a cool story. So, I followed you on Instagram and we've connected, and like your posts, like your thought process, your mindset, and what you teach people. And can you share with us your journey from being a lead in the VH1 crime story to becoming a successful figure competitor, in a sense, and personal trainer?
Yeah, so they all kind of intertwine with one another. I would argue to say that they bleed over into one another. So I grew up. I grew up in choir. I grew up in theater. I was a theater geek growing up. That's what I did. Athleticism was not my thing when I was younger. Later on in life, I then look back on it now and say, wow, I probably could have gone into athletics when I was younger. I just didn't know it was there. But I stuck with theater and art. So I'm a creative person. I've always been that way. And that kind of translated into competing. So I did that throughout school. Was in several different musicals. I started recording music, making my own music. I didn't really stick with that. I ended up going to college for fashion retail management. And then about 2 semesters in for my BA, I was like, I'm going to become a bodybuilder. And that was my decision making. And I think it was because that underlying part of me that always desired to be a part of athletics when I was younger and didn't really feel like that was like my spot or where I fit in. And again, being like a theater kid and creative person, it was like we were on total opposite sides of the spectrum when it comes to like what we're involved in. And so I just never felt like there was a place for me. I tried playing softball when I was younger. That did not last very long. I realized very quickly that the pressure of, if I messed up, my whole team's going to lose and it's going to all be my fault, was not something I was down with. But then I slowly got introduced to bodybuilding actually through an ex-boyfriend of mine and had a couple of friends of his that were competitors. And I remember seeing these girls in the gym. Mind you, at this time, I was the girl that everybody starts out as, I feel, that had no clue what she was doing in the gym, that was doing way too much cardio, not eating enough, just trying to do what I thought you were supposed to do to get skinny. Like it was not good. It was a hot mess. And this ex-boyfriend of mine was like, "Let me take you to the gym so we can show you how to lift some weights." I'm like, "Okay, whatever he says gonna work." And I saw these competitors that he was friends with, and I just remember seeing these girls, and I was in awe of their physiques. I was just like, and it's funny because I look back at it now, and these girls at that time were bikini competitors, and this was a long time ago. So these girls now, in today's standards of bodybuilding, are carrying little to no muscle in
Wow.
comparison. But to me, it was like, oh my God, they look incredible. And they're carrying their gallon jugs of water around. And I'm like, I want to look like that. And it was that moment. And I remember communicating this to that ex boyfriend and him telling me, kind of challenging me a little bit and being like, oh, there's no way you would want to do that. You'd have to dedicate your whole life to that. You're not going to be able to party. You won't be able to eat what you want. You have to 24/7, you're living that lifestyle. I'm like, yeah, but what if that's like the joy from it? What if that's what these people enjoy doing? Why do you think I can't do that? Oh, no, 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 sir. Do not tell me I cannot do something. I will show you exactly how much I can. And
I
honestly,
love it.
that propelled me into bodybuilding. What's interesting though is the VH1, that was really random. And that was actually a byproduct of me going into bodybuilding, believe it or not. So I have all that background in theater and choir. And then years later, me being in the gym when this crew is filming and they're filming an episode and it was another episode for VH1 True Crime. They're filming another series and they're in the gym that I'm training at. And the producer comes up to me and is like, we need you. I have a shaved head at this point. I'm like, I look like this jacked, like, I don't know what I look like, jacked up, shaved head. Like, I just looked so rough. But
G.I.
that was
Jane?
G.I. Jane all day. But that was fitting for what they were looking for, exactly to a T. And a lot of these actresses that they were like trying to audition weren't willing to shave their head for the role. And mine was already shaved. So I was just kind of like, I walked up on it and was in the right place at the right time. And that was a lot of fun. But it's interesting how it all circles back into one another, that it never really was
Absolutely.
separate ever.
Yeah.
I felt that way in my head when I was young, that like, oh, I can't be this and do that. No, I can do both.
You can do
Yeah.
everything. How old were you when this fitness journey began?
I was, I started lifting. I actually started lifting a little bit when I was still in high school. I was like 17 going to 18. My dad brought me into the gym a few times, but it never really stuck. But when I was 18 years old, that's when I took it really seriously. And I hired a coach and a trainer, and I began prepping for my first competition.
That's awesome. That the discipline, and I know the discipline that it takes to do what you do, and I applaud that. And what do you say to anybody that you earlier you alluded to this really particular word, and it seemed to define you. You can't do that. So what do you say to someone that maybe is struggling and someone told them that they can't do something? What would you say to them?
I would say it's not them that you have to prove anything to, it's yourself. And so if those words bother you, like they bothered me, it was because there was somewhere inside of me that I held a sliver of doubt. And what that was a call to action to do was to eradicate that doubt. And so I kind of like to say that, like, you have to first believe that you're deserving, and then you have to put forth action to validate that. So for anybody who's saying, like, you can't do something, maybe you can if you believe that. If you believe that, you're right. But if someone challenges you that way, if someone says you can't and it bothers you, it's because your spirit knows that you can. You just haven't put forth the actions to solidify that truth. And so that's what you need to do. And so either you step up and prove to yourself day in and day out that those words can't touch me, because I'm literally displaying for the world to see and myself that that's not true, or you succumb to that. It's a
Yeah.
decision that you make. Nobody
Yeah, and
can
that's
nobody can put limits on you but yourself.
it goes back to your mindset. We control what we say, and you're right. I often say, as to many, and as a mindset coach, we a lot of people say things and then they internalize it, and then that's who they become. That's their identity, and it's a beautiful thing, Lisa, that you said, and I commend you immensely because the physicality, the discipline, the the struggle probably too, and I want to hear, and I'll get into that a little bit, that you have to go through being in that state, right? like like that's hard stuff. Like less than 1% of the people in the world kind of do what you do, right?
That's true. Yeah, it is an extreme sport, if that's what you want
So
to call it.
yeah, so let me ask you, how has your experience, because you talked a little in your bio, you talked a little bit about figure competitor. You're so close.
Yeah,
Influenced your approach to personal training and the online business that you have. If you can, first of all, give your shout out of your business right now, and we'll make sure we'll include that in the bio as well, when people click on the links to learn more about that. Because go ahead.
absolutely. It's LMC Fitness Inc. It's a fitness company, online coaching. I do nutrition programming as well as online coaching with your training, video reviews of form. I mean, I'm literally an open book, so I'm in constant contact 24/7. So, personal phone number and all, weekly Zoom calls, check ins, the works. I do everything. But that's what I do.
So how did that kind of kick off the catalyst? Like, fitness competitor. How did that influence what you do now? How did
Ooh.
what caused that?
Well, I would say that hmm, my level of drive, so my initial reasons for even getting into fitness, I can relate so much to anybody who's starting their journey out in fitness, because at some point anybody who's been in this game long enough has been at a day one before. We've all been there. But I also would say that, like, when you decide to get serious about it and hire a coach, I also know what that experience is like as well, because I've been that client. And it does make such a difference having that accountability system and having somebody who can sit there and give you feedback honestly, and with transparency. And it does give a emphasis to everything that you're doing, and like a greater, I would say, purpose to it. And I like to take that mentality of when I was competing. And I mean, I don't expect my clients to be competitors. If they want to, that's awesome. If I can, inspire them to do that in some way, cool. If they want, I'm not at all suggesting it, because it is a very extreme sport. There are sacrifices that you have to make. There are levels of health concerns that you need to be aware of, and need to have all of that checked out and lined up before you start any prep, or considering that for that matter. But um, I think having the ability myself to have that level of discipline and consistency that's day in, day out, meaning everything is to a T, I would say that translates into how I work with my clients, as I do hold a higher standard for my clients because I hold that same standard for myself. And it's not to say that I need them to be a competitor, but if you come to me with a goal and we map out a plan step by step to help you achieve that goal, then the expectation I have of you is that you're going to follow through on what you say you're going to do. You give me your word and I give you mine. And that's kind of how it goes. I would say that's how it translates.
Yeah, I love it, and that's important. One thing I had a thorough when I was reading your bio, and one thing that resonated with me, and I'm curious to kind of pick your brain. What inspired you to specialize in the glutes? You're like a glute master, right? So tell us a
Yeah.
little bit about that. Why is that such an important aspect to the fitness world, to your clients? I mean, so many, we watch, TV, and we see the bubble butts because they're paying a lot of money to get it injected. So tell us why you are a glute specialist. Go.
Well, it's not just the aesthetic reasons. So I myself was in a car accident actually after my last competition in 2015 nationals. About maybe 2 months after competing, I was T-bone going 60.
Wow.
And yeah, and so it left me with two bulging discs. That's what ultimately took me out at that time from competing. Um, but it left me with bulging discs. And one thing I did not realize through going through my rehab and Um, Getting stronger again is how much the glutes have an influence over your low back and your spinal stability. I mean, it makes sense once you learn and you educate yourself. You're like, okay, the largest muscle in the body, they literally support everything. It makes sense. Your hip, your pelvis, you're sitting right. That's what's holding it up. So it makes a lot of sense. But for me, it was mostly inspired because of my issues in my low back and ways for me to help manage and mitigate the pain. But now it's turned into more than that. I get a lot of girls, a lot of women that come to me, and the first thing that they want to do is they want to grow their butt and grow their legs. And, I like to make sure that they also understand like the mechanisms of what the glutes do and how it benefits them overall, not just aesthetically, because if they can understand the function and the movement of your glutes, then it's going to make it a lot easier to grow them because you know what they're actually doing. And you know what? A lot of guys need to be training their glutes more. They got to train those glutes more. So why not be as educated as I
Tell
can?
us
So I
why.
can help
Tell
my
us
clients.
why. For all the male listeners out there, why do men need to have better glutes? Besides what you just said.
Besides just the health reasons.
Yeah.
Well, me personally, I think overall aesthetically, like who wants to see a pancake butt? Like
But
women find it highly attractive to have a butt back there.
But
Plus,
not
it's
just
like
that, but yeah, like legs too, right? Like you see all these
yes.
guys that are just in the gym and they gotta, I mean, and they're on these dating apps and they're looking great from the waist up. But man, when they're in the gym, you know what the first thing I always look at? I look at their legs, I look at their calves, I look at their quads.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like seriously, you want to be disciplined, do the whole body,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
I'm guilty of that too. I definitely do look at the calves and like, oh man,
Like,
But
bro,
I think
what
that goes too.
happened, man?
You'll find a lot of guys too that will train legs, but they won't train glutes. So they'll like, oh yeah, I'm hitting legs today. It's like, did you do any movements that incorporate glute activation at all? And you'll find it's only the real ones that like really they know how important it is because it's like, listen, it's gonna help you assist in all your lifts. Like you're just gonna get stronger overall. Like there's literally no downside to training your glutes. Like women love it. You're gonna get stronger in all of your major lifts. You're gonna be longevity wise improving your health and your spinal stability and support. Like why are we not training this? Because oh, it's what girls do. Like actually, we now live in the day where girls do all the same lifts anyway. So like, it's just even playing field. Let's just go.
I love I
Let's
love
just
it.
do it.
I love it. I love it. I love it. And I admire. I had showed my daughter your picture, and I was going through my. I have a 9-year-old daughter, and she was like, "Dad, she's strong." I go, "Yeah." I said, "Women can be strong." I said, "It's okay for them to be strong," and I completely. You talk. I want to talk. I want to go in a little bit about your car accident here because it's a little personal, and I think a lot of people can resonate with stories and whatnot and areas that we're all down because we all struggle with that. So was there ever a point in time where it was so bad that you were just like, what the F am I going to do? Like, what was the biggest challenge from that T-bone accident? So you get hit. What's the rehab like? What's the process like? Kind of give us that little story about that. And what was the biggest challenge coming out of that to where you are now?
Ooh, that one's gonna get me a little emotional if I'm being honest. So it was tough. It was really tough because it was something that like I thought I was fine at first, and then it was later on, like as the days went by, that I was like, oh, I'm not all right. Like this is bad. I had to lawyer up. It was a intense experience. My recovery, it started with going to the chiropractor, the standard protocol, going to the chiropractor, getting adjustments, getting an X-ray, and basically it wasn't just my low back; it's also my neck too. That I lost movement in my neck, so I can't fully like turn my head all the way. Like it's gotten a lot better now, but this direction is still tough for me to do in comparison to this one.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yeah, the curvature of my neck. He's like, my doctor at the time was like, you have the neck of an 80-year-old woman. I'm like, that's great. Awesome. But as far as my low back, it started with that therapy. And then I requested, thank God their office had this available, a sports tissue massage therapist. Somebody who, because at this time I was bodybuilding, I had a lot of muscle on me. And so whatever they were doing was not enough. And I started working with them, but it didn't really improve anything. at that time. Like I was kind of effed. And I remember I was on a high. Okay. I had just gone to nationals. My first time I was like maybe 22 years old, 21, 22, and taking seventh for your first go around at the biggest national show in the country. This was in Miami, and taking that spot, seventh place, that might not seem like a lot to people, but if people understand like how good of a sign that is, that like you are on track to getting your pro status, I was like, holy crap, like I just got to keep working and I'm going to be right there. And then boom, car accident. So it was devastating. And I remember there were moments where, oh man, there was this one moment I was in my apartment, I was reaching over to grab something out of my fridge, and I froze and I collapsed in pain. Like I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. It was so painful. And it was like that for a while. I mean, in my mind, I'm like, I'm done. Whatever dream I had, everything that I had given up, I stopped going to college. I was full-time competing. I was sponsored. Like my sponsors were going to drop me. I'm like, what am I going to do? This was my whole world. And now that's done. I couldn't lift. I couldn't do any of the stuff. And even if I could, like I'm never gonna be able to move the same way again. Not true. It's just what I thought at that time. But yeah, it was really rough. I think that was probably the most devastating experience that I had, that I've not that I've ever had, but pretty close to it as far as like when you're trying to work towards a big dream or goal that like means everything to you. That was a huge step back. And I think the biggest obstacle with overcoming that was really honestly time and my mentality. I would say that was the beginning of taking me away from fitness, and I started to just live a somewhat like normal life. And then I ended up moving to Vegas, and I was working in nightlife, and that's a whole other story. But this is because I had those limiting beliefs in my head over what that car accident meant as far as what I'd be able to do in the future. And I kept thinking that like that was done. And so I started to behave in ways that reaffirmed that, which was so counterproductive because if I could go back then and talk to that version of myself, just have patience. You're gonna get back to exactly where you were and better. Like just be patient. That's what I would be saying, because that's exactly what has happened. But yeah, that was a tough time.
So with all of that, and thank you so much for sharing that. And you didn't get too emotional, which would have been even better for the ratings if you would have, Lisa. But I want to say this though. What would you think is the biggest learning perspective? So we have so many people that maybe are in your type of shoes. Podcast with my clients, etc. But we all, at one point, I think our creator tests us, right? Mm-hmm. It's like you get slammed. You're on top of the world, right? You finish seventh, almost top 7 in the worlds, right? Or in the country to get this pro card. And all of a sudden, 2 weeks later, you get this massive accident. Now you're way down here. Like, what did you learn, and what would you tell other people that maybe had the success, and then all of a sudden now they're flat on their face? I always use the analogy of that brick wall. Now that brick wall is really in front of you. What would you say? What was your learning experience from that?
Well, first, I think the lesson in that moment was as easy as it can come is as easy as it can go. And so not to stay too attached to these ideas you have of what your life is going to look like in your head. Not to say lose your vision, lose your sight of where you want to go, but just know that sometimes the road you think is going to take you there isn't. And things will kind of challenge you and test you. I would say like what I really learned honestly was humility, to be honest with you, and to appreciate the people that I have in my life that were supportive of me, and that were accepting of me regardless if I continued to attach an identity to my fitness. So, and I think that was another kind of focal point, which was like I had attached so much of my identity to competing in bodybuilding that without that, I felt lost. Like I didn't know who I was. And I think that's like the big lesson to learn is like that was never who I was. I'm so much more than that. That's one aspect of me, one part of myself that I enjoy, but it's not what defines me. My choices that I make today and tomorrow and continue, those define me. But if that goes away, it doesn't make me any less capable. But I also would like to say that I learned too that like now, again, like where I am now years later, and it's crazy that I'm doing it again, that I'm back in the gym, that I'm training other people, that I have a coach myself, that like these are all things that are coming back into fruition for me. It was like, wow, I if I could go back then and remind myself not to get so consumed with that like overwhelming dread of like what now, what's life going to look like, who am I going to be, and just like embrace every part of the experience as being a part of my experience and what was supposed to happen, that's going to ultimately lead me to where I'm supposed to be. I would go back and tell her that all day because that's what she needed to hear, and that's what I learned from it. Was I was honestly overthinking it too much and making it much bigger than what it needed to be in the big scheme of things. Does that make sense?
No, it completely does. I heard you say a word that I want to kind of have you elaborate. You said, "Who I am."
Mhm.
Tell everybody that's listening, who is Lisa Campbell? And just use it by describing and using some adjectives. For example, for me, I'm a father, I'm a devout Christian, I give back, I'm a life strategist, I have a podcast, I'm a fitness enthusiast. What would you say when someone would ask you, who is Lisa Campbell? You say, go.
One, I'm a survivor.
Ooh.
Anybody who knows me personally, I haven't talked about it publicly yet, but anybody who knows me personally understands exactly what that means. And I'll go briefly over that quickly, but along the lines of extreme sociopathic domestic abuse. So, not just typical domestic abuse, but sociopathic, the kind of criminals that are locked away in like isolation for many, many years. Craziness. Escape that. I'm alive. Survivor. One.
Wow, amazing.
Two.
We need to commend you for that. That's amazing.
Thank you. Two, I'm a daughter. I'm a sister. I'm a girlfriend, partner. I'm a dog mom, fitness enthusiast as well. But I'm also a creative and artistic person, and I'm a very spiritual person as well. So that's who I am. There's
I
really
love
not a
it.
whole lot more
Well,
than
that's
that.
good. Yeah, that is, I love it. I love it. So, could you discuss any memorable success stories besides, number 7 in the championships for figure competitor? So, let me rephrase. Could you discuss any memorable success stories or transformations from your clients that stand out the most to you? Go.
Ooh, okay. Um, okay, yeah. So I'll highlight one of my clients. She's still my client. She's been my client for the last almost year now, and this is incredible. She at first, when she first came into the gym, when she first started getting her fitness journey going, she was very timid. She was very to herself. She was very in her shell. Um, she was almost like just going through the motions. It wasn't really that she necessarily enjoyed being there, but she had this desire and she had this goal that she wanted to achieve. And so she was just kind of doing the things that she believed that she needed to do in order to get there. But it wasn't like she was enjoying the process or really like embracing it. And I think really she just needed somebody to like see her and want to help genuinely. And now like she's dropped almost like 34, 35 pounds. Craziness. She's done that, and she's done it the smart way too, slow and steady over time. So it's weight that she's kept off, and she continues to drop. I'm a big advocate of that. I don't like doing like crash dieting for clients just to get people to be like, look at how I got my client to lose all this weight. Like, no, we're not doing that. We're going to rehab your metabolism. We're going to do this the smart way. It's going to take longer, but that's just what true love is. And that's just how it's going to go because you got to get used to this being a lifestyle. But she's probably been my biggest like transformative story because it wasn't just about the external that's been changing. because that part can honestly, in my opinion, is easy to do if you know what you're doing. But the internal space, the way that she views the world. Now she goes in the gym. She's like, this is my favorite part of the day. I'm so happy to be here. Like, I love coming and training with you. Like, I love having our sessions. Like, this is my me time. Like, and she walks in there with confidence. She knows exactly where she's going, what she's doing, and how it's going to be done. And there's no questions asked. And she's just a rock star. And she's my hardest working client, honestly. And I have both men and women. Okay. I don't train just females. I'm a hard ass trainer. I will kick your butt. I don't care if you're a dude or if anything, because you're a dude, I'm going to push you even harder than my females, even though my females go hard and they recover faster. So they end up handling a lot more volume. But I push my dudes. But she kicks everybody's butt. Everybody. She outworks all of them, to be honest with you. She really does, because it means so much more to her than just the physical. This is like her now finding that confidence in self to where she doesn't have to walk in anywhere and feel like she doesn't, almost similar to like how I felt with athleticism when I was younger. Like, I didn't feel like I belonged, so I didn't bother, you know? And now it's like changed the game for her. So yeah,
I always find it, thank you. And thank you, Lisa, for sharing that. And I always find it interesting because you can always tell the individuals that are very confident in the gym, where do they go to first? The treadmill, right? Or like a simple sit down machine, where they have no concept of how important it is to make sure your heart rate is at a particular percentage when you're working out. That's vital. Let me ask you this: what are some common misconceptions about fitness or even figure competition that you would have encountered, and how do you address them with your clients?
I'm sorry, what are my big, what?
Yeah. So what are some misconceptions about fitness and or figure competition, because you were in it, that you encountered, and how do you address them with your clients?
Okay. Well, okay. Biggest misconception is that just because I'm a figure competitor or an athlete, that I don't know how to enjoy myself or live life. That's a big misconception. Um, I also think it's a different too way of looking at like experiencing life. Like, there's a lot of things that are socialized as being like going out to eat is a social activity, and that's kind of how you interact and gather and get together. And sometimes it's like, why can't we just get together and I'm eating my thing and you're eating yours? But also, misconception too is that like there's not times where I'm not eating on plan, or there's not times where maybe I'll have a glass of champagne. Like, that's a big misconception as well. That I'm always, now I don't drink now. I'm sober as hell, but that's by choice. That's my internal space and choice. And I also have acid reflux, so I have no business drinking if I wanted to. But those are misconceptions of figure competitors, of any athletes really. What's another one? Oh, I think a big misconception is that we're all ego driven, and that and with my clients, I feel like sometimes there might be a time where they are a little worried that I might be like really hard on them. Like I expect them to be an athlete, like eating like an athlete, unless I have a client that's an athlete. If you're just looking to live a healthier lifestyle and you're just coming into the gym, for your own personal reasons, but not necessarily for a competition, not because you're trying to get ready for a triathlon or a marathon or whatever. There's not a specific goal like that, just because you want to live a healthier lifestyle. A lot of the big misconception is that because I'm an athlete, that I'm going to treat you with the same restrictiveness as I would an athlete, and that's not true. That's not true at all. I would say those are the biggest misconceptions, and that's kind of how I explain it to my clients too. Is like, hey, just because I'm an athlete doesn't mean that I'm gonna expect you to do what I do.
Sure.
Like, just because I do this doesn't mean that I expect you to do this. I want this to be something sustainable and long lasting, something that you'll do till the end of days. So obviously, these things that you enjoy need to be incorporated. It's just like, how can we make it make sense for what your goals are here in the gym? That's it. I would say those are the biggest misconceptions.
It's well said. And there's a few things here. Coaches need coaches, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I also think, though, if you're going to be in the industry of fitness, you got to look at, if I'm going to preach to you what a consistent disciplined lifestyle is, and I'm going to put these regiments and these detailed, organized workouts together, you better live it. Because I think if you live it, you're not practicing what you preach. Would you agree? Do you disagree? What are your thoughts on that?
I've always agreed with that. I think where it gets tricky is, this is the part where I feel like coaches need coaches, right? Because, and this is okay. I'll list another misconception. This is a good one. Actually, this happened recently, which is, well, if you are a trainer and you're a coach, then why would you need a coach? Don't you already know what you're doing? I'm like, oh, okay. Let me explain how this works.
I want to hear I want to hear your response, and then I'll give you mine. That's good. Go.
My response to it was, well, one of two things. One, I would like to alleviate my workload. And when I'm already responsible for so many other people, it's nice to have somebody be responsible for this part of my life where I'm not having to sit here and break everything down and change my program and adjust. But also, it helps having a second eye, because where I might be overly critical on myself, my coach might recognize that, hey, you're actually in a good spot. You don't need to make adjustments. And I simply wouldn't be able to see that on my own. Also, my coach, I actually work with in person as well. So he kicks my butt and he trains me. And there's certain things that I don't care who you are. There are certain aspects of training that, like, if I get to mechanical breakdown and I cannot safely perform another rep or follow through on the rep safely, that having my coach right there to help assist me up and literally at sometimes push me through those reps to get me there, is able to take me past my own limitations. So it's not whether I know enough or not. It's because having that outside opinion only benefits me and makes my life easier.
You're right. When you're telling everybody all the time, get a great workout, and I resonate with that a lot, and I appreciate you sharing that with everybody. The biggest thing I always say: did Kobe Bryant need a coach? Did Michael Jordan need a coach? Did Phelps, did he need a coach? So you're telling me the best people in the world needed coaches, and you don't need a coach? We all need a coach, right? No, that was beautifully said. So supplementation.
Yeah.
Important, not important. What's the percentage of what you would put into it? We have an entire podcast on it, but you don't have to go elaborate on it. But I kind of want to get your opinion. What would you suggest for women? What would you suggest for men? Ready, set, go. And maybe it's an age parameter, but I want to hear your expertise.
Ooh, okay. Typically, like across the board, if for somebody who's just starting, supplementation is important, especially if they're just learning how to navigate their nutrition. And I don't expect all of my clients coming to me to know exactly how many protein, grams of protein, fat, carbs are and everything, if they're hitting their micronutrients or not, if they're getting everything out their L-carnitine, if they're getting, all these different, I don't expect them to know that. So I want to cover all the bases, and making sure that if they're not getting in their nutrition, or if there's any pockets there, that we're covering that. So it's not a whole lot. A multivitamin, omega-3s, BCAAs, glutamine, creatine, and and then a probiotic and a digestive enzyme. That's really about it across the board. Now, for men, I am a big advocate on getting your blood work done. Because
How many times a year?
Well, at least twice, so every 6 months. But if you're an athlete or if you are a more experienced lifter, then I would even go every 3. But it's ultimately up to you and what your budget looks like, if your insurance covers it, etc. But women should be getting their blood work done as well, to look at those hormones as well, especially if they're a little bit older and they're experiencing some changes, then we should have that looked at as well. And that might influence or dictate some different supplements that I might suggest. But it ultimately will come down to what the blood work comes back with.
Yeah, that's well said. And a lot of people forget that piece, the blood work. And that's a vital piece for anybody that's listening out there, because that tells you what you're deficient in and how much you need. Like when we live in Wisconsin, during the winter months, we need to put in a lot of vitamin D. We don't get that here, right? So yeah, that's versus Florida, where you guys are the sunshine state. So we're
Yeah.
very envious. I'm very envious. But I love Tampa. I was out there for a convention years ago, probably 10 years ago. I fell in love with Tampa. So say for example, you got a conference and you're gone for the weekend. Are you sending food to your hotel? Are you
Ooh,
prepping
okay.
it? Yeah, I want to hear
I
this.
like this.
Yeah,
So there's a couple different ways to go about this, and I actually have clients right now that struggle with this. And
yeah.
if you have the budget for it, why not have meals shipped to wherever you're staying? Like if you can afford it, it's just make life simpler for you. Have it shipped to wherever you're going to be, so you don't have to worry about that. Um, If not, I'm pretty sure that there's some meals that you can like bring with you, like, and there's some stuff that you can like, as long as it's frozen, I believe you could take it with you on the airplane. Um, but if it were me, I would more than likely, no matter where I go, I'm gonna be booking either an Airbnb or a hotel that has like a kitchen area inside of the hotel room, so I can cook. And I'm gonna be looking up two things: one, where the closest local grocery store is, and two, where the closest gym is, and making sure that I'm booking my stay somewhere that is convenient with those. And that might sound like a tall order, but like we have Airbnb now. So like literally you can just book a house and stay wherever you want to stay. Like it's not as complicated as it sounds. Like literally you could just be like you're at home and just do a little grocery shopping and cook. Airbnbs usually stay stocked with all the appliances and stuff that you need. So you don't have to worry about that. That's
I appreciate that from a fit. And I think what's really vital is the first thing that I always look up is how far the gym is away from the hotel where I'm staying. Because it's part of
yeah.
your lifestyle, right? It's part of who we are. It's part of our identity, right? And
Yeah.
not only that, but it also leads to, I think, a quality, purposeful, disciplined life. And correct me if I'm wrong, Lisa, the most disciplined people are the most successful people.
I
Would
agree.
you agree with that? Yeah.
I would agree. Plus, they're the most influential because there's plenty of CEOs and multi-billionaires that are fat as hell. Excuse my French, but it's just the truth, objectively. Like they're ridiculously out of shape.
You can cuss. Yep, I agree.
Okay, fat as hell. And who has respect for those people? Who feels inspired by those people?
Yes.
Nobody. Like I can only take you at your word for so long because you couldn't even keep the word to yourself. Look at where your health's going. You're setting that example for all of us that that's what we should aspire to be like. No, thank you. No, thank
You
you. I
know,
would rather be
yeah,
broke and be in shape and have my health than be rich and out of shape and dying. Like I'm
I
good.
use I use this so many times, and you may have heard it. If I gave you $1 million today, Lisa, would you take it? Everybody would say what? What would you say?
What's the catch?
There's no catch. I've given you $1 million today. Would you take it? Yes or no? Of course you would
Yes.
take it. Yeah. Now, if I changed it and I said, if I gave you $1 million today, not to wake up tomorrow, would you take it?
No.
Exactly. That's why our health is absolutely more important, I think, than money. But health can lead to success and generate money. So let me ask you this: maintaining a work-life balance. We've interviewed so many different people on this podcast. Some people say there isn't a balance. Some people say there is a balance. What is your thought on balance on life? I know we connected a lot of times. We were attempting to schedule this. You had too many clients. We had to reschedule it. So talk to me a little bit. How do you? Because you're dating. You're a boy. You're in a relationship,
Hmm.
and that's obviously very very important. So you got to spend time with that. You have to spend time on your own fitness,
Hmm.
and then you got clients. And you're putting in probably 46 hours a week. So what's a good quality balance? Even if that's just a word, or is it not a word? Tell me. Go ahead, Lisa.
Um, I feel like balance is subjective. Like I literally feel like it's dependent on how you quite literally balance your day, like your days. Like what is your version of balance? I mean, I don't think it's really like I can't like blanket statement like because I think some people would say that I do have balance, and then other people would be like, you definitely don't. So I really think it's like the eye of the beholder that dictates like what balance is. I feel like if you can just if you're able to if you're able to maintain healthy relationships in all aspects, whether it's work, your relationship, your family, etc., if those are all in a good place and they're all healthy, then I don't think it really matters which one is spending more time and which one has more invested into, because they're all satisfied. So you're all investing enough in each area. And if one starts to like suffer, then that's when you kind of need to go back to the drawing board and reevaluate that and communicate and have a conversation about that and make that work if that's something that you value having. But I would say as far as me, like I'm very blessed. My boyfriend is in fitness. He's a former D1 athlete. He played football for Vanderbilt in college. Like he loves bodybuilding. He's a huge fan of the sport. He's not an expert with me. And if I decide that I'm prepping or I'm on a certain program, he's on board too. Like he just wants to be a part of it with me. So that way I'm not the only one doing it. And I'm very blessed in that sense because we're both two meatheads. So it works out perfectly fine. So we're good there. Work can get crazy. He works a very demanding job, just like I have crazy hours. So yeah, it can be kind of, I would say, off balance. So there's some nights that we're going to bed later than others, and mornings we're waking up earlier than, probably we'd like to with how late we went to sleep. But I feel like that's just the nature of like what we do and part of like what comes with being successful at it. And if you want to grow, you have to kind of just accept that that's part of the game. But, as long as you involve everybody that is in your life in some capacity where they're kind of along the journey with you and they feel like they're having a part in it, then I feel like you can maintain the health of those relationships without it feeling like you're sacrificing.
I love it. I love it. We're going to get into some fun stuff here before we get to the top of the hour, but I want to ask you this. How do you stay motivated and continue to evolve in the fitness journey personally and then also professionally?
There's no motivation. Get that word out of here. There's no motivation. It's discipline. That's it.
Got it. Let me hear it.
Do you know how there's days where my eyes feel like they're gonna bleed, okay? There's like steam coming out of my ears. I'm like running out my nose. I can't. Yeah, get that out of here. I'm not motivated. I'm like, why am I doing this? But eventually, when you start seeing that return coming in, it's like, oh, okay, yes, that's okay, yes, this is why I'm doing it. Okay, yes. Every day, the suck is going to be there. You accept that that's a part of how it's going to go, but the reward is always going to be so much greater than the suck. And so, discipline. I don't stay motivated. Listen, some of this stuff sucks. Some of it's rough. This is rough stuff out here, but I do it anyway. It's discipline. That's it. I don't even know what it feels. It's been a long time since I've even experienced what it feels like to be like motivated. It's been a long time since I've felt that. Like it's so distant in my memories. I'm like, what was it like to feel? Maybe inspired is a better way I could put it.
Okay.
Maybe feeling inspired. Maybe I remember what that feels like, but motivated. That was gone a long time ago.
I like that. I like your perspective on that. It's like the delayed gratification. You put in all the work, and that's a lot of thing. Like, I mean, the statistics show it. How many New Year's resolutions do you have? Where it's like, I think it's like 78% of people on New Year's, they sign up for a gym, but they don't have a plan, and then they're done 3 months later. So it's like one thing about fitness, you can go work out and you're not going to see results the next day. You can go around 2 days in a row. It's that slow gratification piece that I alluded to earlier, which obviously you are a part of now, and you put in the time, you put in the effort, which is so wonderful, and I appreciate your story. So Lisa, crazy funny story. You said you lived in Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
Let the listeners know one of the craziest, wildest stories about Lisa Campbell, the fitness guru in Tampa, Florida now, running her own online coaching company. She's the Glute master. Share a funny, crazy story with the audience. Go.
Oh man, from my Vegas days?
If it's Vegas, cool. If not, just something in general. What do you think? What do you got?
Oh man, you're gonna have to give me a second to think on that. What are some funny, crazy stories that I've had? Whew. Oh no.
Most embarrassing?
I'm trying to think of when I had like an embarrassing moment. This is a tough question for me. I'm not gonna lie. There's nothing that can necessarily come off the top of my head that I'm like, that was embarrassing.
What would your sister? You had a sister, you said, correct?
Yeah, I have a sister. Yeah.
What would your sister say was the funniest part of your guys growing up?
I don't know if she'd say it was funny. I think she would call me crazy. Oh, I was a very rebellious child. I set the example for my siblings of what not to do. That's me. I made every mistake possible growing up. Oh, here's a story. Okay, here's a little story.
See? Okay.
My sister would gladly. This is the running. This will never be. They will never let this go. This is forever burned into all of our memories. I was like 14. Okay, so let me just paint the picture. 14, not old enough to have a permit. Definitely not old enough to have a license. Definitely stole my mom's car in the middle of the night anyway. And I was doing this quite often, actually, and getting away with it. I would sneak out my window. I would go pick up my friend. We'd go over to some boy's house. And then I drop her off, go back home. Mom woke up the next day. Never noticed. How she didn't notice the gas going out, I don't know, because the gas was not the same. I didn't have any money. I was 14 years old. I'm not filling up the gas tank. Maybe a girlfriend of mine filled it up at one point. I don't know. But I was a very rebellious child. And one night, oh man, this is so awful. One night, I took the car out just like any other night, and I go pick up my friend. We go to this boy's house. I go to drop her off, and this is the dumbest thing. I cannot believe I did this. Mind you, it's hard for me to see. I'm not that tall at 14. I was tall, but I'm like not. I'm driving a GMC Envoy at this point. Okay, big SUV. So like I had no business driving this car, and I'm dropping her off, and there was like this car parked, like the way that it was lined up, I was trying to get like really close to like her apartment door so that way like the lights wouldn't shine into her apartment, her parents wake up. And I pulled in too close to the cars, and when I pulled back out, this truck had like a trailer package on the edge of it, and I literally ran right into the back of this guy's truck and trailer package, where the trailer package dug into the side of my mom's car, and now I'm stuck in the car. And trying to pull it out and back it out was just making it worse. So fast forward to me, these neighbors are trying to like move out in the middle of the night, like trying to like skip their lease, right? And they hear this big crash. They come out there, and she's reassuring me. She's like, "Oh, honey, you're gonna be okay. Don't worry, you'll get through this. What's going on? Just call the police. Your insurance will cover it." I'm like, I don't have a license. I can't do it. She's like, "Oh, okay. Let me take you back to your house." I sneak back in through the same window I just snuck out of. And I go back to the house, and I wake my mom up, middle of the night. She's waking up. She's basically right next to nothing because it's the middle of the night. And I'm like, "Mom, go outside." And she's like, "Why? Why do you want me to go outside right now?" I'm like, "Just please come outside." Mind you, the same woman that was dropping me off to my mom, she's staying there, like waiting with me for moral support. Like she was letting me know that she's like, "Oh, don't worry, I did something like that when I was your age. You'll be fine. You'll get through it. I'll stay here with you." I'm like, "Okay, thank you." My mom comes out, is like, "Look at this random lady," and she's like, "Where is my car?" Yeah, so that turned into cops getting called, them having to do a whole report, me having to go to court and talk to a judge about why I had stolen my mom's car. And I got really lucky. The judge basically said, "Well, you're not old enough to have a license, so I can't tell you to do that. You're not old enough to have a permit, so I can't tell you to do that. And I don't want to fine your parents because this isn't their punishment for what you did. So you're going to get community service hours." So I got community service hours, and lucky for me, remember I'm a theater kid at this time, right? So lucky for me, I was not old enough to do the what is it called? The Salvation Army. They're like working for them. I wasn't old enough to do that, and I wasn't old enough to do the trash pickup. So I had to find a nonprofit organization that would take my community service hours, and I ended up going with Lowry Park Zoo. And this was during like the Halloween season, so they were like hiring all these different like scare actors, as well as having students from like schools that were like theater schools, like playing these different scare actors as part of um, their volunteer hours. And so I got to get volunteer hours for my school, but also community service hours. I'm the only kid showing up with like a Hillsborough County Sheriff Department like paper. They're like all getting signed off to their school. I'm like, fine, like I'm here. But I got to play a scare actor for my community service hours. I thought that was pretty cool. So I got really lucky. Yeah, kids don't do that. Not a good idea.
Oh, I think we all got some funny, crazy story when we were younger that kind of is very similar to that, Lisa. And that's a fun story. And I appreciate you sharing that. So as we're wrapping up here, what is the next thing for you in your career in the fitness journey, and any exciting projects or goals on the horizon?
Yeah, so there is a new exciting goal that I have. I don't know when it's going to be, but so it's been a long time since I've been on stage. It's been since 2015. I haven't competed since then. And I honestly didn't think I would ever compete again or ever consider it. But I have a coach now, and you know, I came so close that I want to give it another shot and see where it goes. So that's the goal for this year. I don't know when it's going to be, but to step on stage again and to get back to that national stage trying to get my pro card. So that's the goal.
That's beautiful.
Be patient with yourself. Understand that this is a lifestyle. It's not a quick fix. And so make sure that your physical goals align with your belief systems and what your internal goals are as well. Um, know that you are going to get exactly where you want to be. It's literally a byproduct of effort. There's quite literally no reason why, if you don't start today and put the work in today, that you won't get to exactly where you want to be with your goals. Probably even better, to be honest. If I could look back on when I started, my goals for myself were a lot smaller physically, and in the fitness industry and fitness lifestyle, they were a lot smaller than what I ever thought I would be able to achieve. And so just get started. Stop holding yourself back, because you're the only one that's doing that. And once you get started and you fall in love with this lifestyle, you'll see how everything starts to fall in place.
It's beautifully said, and thank you so much for
Yeah, so the primary platform that I use is Instagram, and that's at Lisa Marie Inked, and Inked is spelled Inked. And you can contact me through email, Lisa at lmcfitnessinc.com, or through my website, which is www.lmcfitnessinc.com.
this competitor to tragedy building. Lisa, appreciate you. I'm gonna second, don't go anywhere. I'm gonna stop the recording here. All right, Lisa, you'll still be able to hear me.